Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here, and tonight I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Griscris bag. Okay? Now, I've contemplated on this for a while on how to approach the discussion of how to create and to make one, especially with today's modern pop culture and their spin and take on it, because there's so many fake things out there that really does not comply with actual practice of witchcraft, sorcery, or any other philosophical or religious based foundations. Hello, Shelley. So I contemplated on this and I did a lot of research before I decided to literally discuss this. I've gotten a lot of requests about how to create some form of spell working, dealing with either a canning jar, a jar sweetener spell, or some form of curse, hex, or jinx, stuff like that. Now, I've done these things before, but these things are not always liked in our communities today. For an example, there are laws against things like trespassing, let's say, for an example, destruction of property, especially private property. There's a lot of different legal means that befall what is intended with these type of things. Not just curses, hexes, and baneful sorcery in general. Now, those of you who are familiar with E.A. Coetting, you've probably seen the video where he was traveling in the woods and found a dead animal, and he actually ravaged through the animal's corpse and pulled out several different items, put them in a cauldron, and consecrated and blessed the items, such as the hip joint or small bones for certain intended rituals. Okay, this is partly true. In fact, you can utilize these things. But this is stuff that is very, very ancient knowledge. And there's a lot that plays into creating or even making a Griscos bag. Now, like I said at the beginning, there's also a lot of things associated with pop culture, like Hollywood produced propaganda. You take the more common shows like Charmed or Supernatural. There's a lot of things that they incorporate into their shows to make it more believable, something that a lot of people that don't know what they're doing will think is appropriate materials. Okay. For an example, let's go with Supernatural, one of the longtime favorites. Okay, 15 seasons. That's no small charm there. Okay, literally, no pun intended. The reason I chose this is because a lot of their material is based off history. It's based off mythological applications of witchcraft, sorcery. For an example, let's see. Some of the earliest things from them, if you want to go into season 10 for an example, black cat bones. Let's go with charred bones of newborns or whatever, hex coins, stuff like that. This is what a lot of people really associate with witchcraft, sorcery, even today. And they think that because of the image of things like Satanism, that you're associated with child sacrificing cults or that of, say, criminal activities such as prostitution and all this other shit. Not true. Absolutely not true. And I can tell you that for a fact. Because anybody who's ever done their research, delved into grimoires, delved into historical and mythological accounts of sorcery from various different regions, you will learn that this stuff don't matter. Okay? However, some of these things can be utilized within a Griskus bag, a black bag, a cursing or hex bag. Okay? Now, you take, for an example, the black fabric bag. This is something that is utilized and has been utilized for centuries. From holding powders to rice, black cursing rice, things like dragon's blood ricin or ricin, okay? Things like basil, wormwood, nettle, or even some form of pinnacle charm, okay? These all things can be placed into a griscris bag, but it doesn't explain how you create one. No, it doesn't. It just simply tells you the items that are placed in there. Now, those of you who like shows like Supernatural, Charmed, or any other witchcraft type movie, television show or whatever, you'll see people just doing some form of chanting, dancing around a cauldron with bubbling goo, things that are utilized with effigies such as voodoo dolls, the pins in the dolls. This is not far from voodooism. However, when we get into witchcraft in general, there are there's literally about four things that you want to take into consideration. The Griscris bag, which is a name, used by modern day Wiccans, Wicca, and most importantly, paganism. Cursing bags, Satanism. The hex bag, witchcraft. The Putsi bag, spelled Putsi. Okay? This is a Romani bag that is similar to a Griscris bag. The Malleus Malefictorum refers to the hex bag of witches. Romans refer to the hex bag as the Putsi bag because it can be dealt with just about any number of things. The two main classifications is for blessings or for cursing. Think of it as good luck charms or that of baneful sorcery. The Germanic term for a hex bag means hex, which in relation to this translates into someone becoming bewitched, okay? Or even having a spell cast upon them. The four main categories of a Griscris bag and its uses can be broken down into to heal, to protect, to empower, or to curse, okay? Now, when we get into something like this, there's a number of different ways that you can utilize it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to manufacture one of these. Okay. And they all belong and surround a hex bag, a griscris bag, a putsi bag. Okay. Any type of bag that you want to call it. Okay. Surrounding the different regions, going all the way back to the earliest and or even the latest ancient civilization that you can recall. The first thing you will need is one item that represents the bag's intent. Okay? Think about it in a form of if you're utilizing this for, say, a love spell, then you want to have some kind of item that is linking it to this specific type of relation. Okay? For an example, the intent would be something like rose petals. Okay? Rose petals are something that links it to romance. It links it to spell castings of intent, either to separate somebody or to bring somebody together. okay, even to attract a lover, okay? Same thing with a pink or red candle. The wax itself resembles love, it resembles passion, okay? Now, if you take, say, for example, a wedding ring, okay? Uh, Say, for example, a quartz crystal, a diamond, even a small diamond. This is the representation of engagement, okay? It is the resemblance of a relationship, a long term relationship. So, therefore, something like this would be placed into a Christmas bag. This is the intent. The second would be classified as the spirit. You will need one item connected to the possessor. Okay. The individual will need to have had their hands on it or at least carried it for at least 7 days or more. Okay. This makes it a very strong connection. This could be anything from, say, a tie, money. It could be anything from, say, piece of paper, maybe a notebook, something that they use a lot of that you can take a small portion of that and put it into this bag. Okay. The third, the intent. You will need some sort of plant, a seed, or some kind of natural based oil that will represent the purpose of the bag. Okay. Say, for an example, if you're doing a destruction ritual, you'll need something that will be made of acid, perhaps something of a suric acid, like, say, that of urine, that of some form of vinegar, something that will disintegrate but blend well with the items in question, especially if you're going to let it sit for a long period of time. Now, when you go to construct it, and you put all these ingredients together, you will need to separate each one right off the bat because number one, you're going to need to cleanse it. You're going to need to consecrate these items as independents. Okay. This basically sets forth the intent of what you're going to be doing, the purpose behind it. The second portion of this is you are going to need to link them together. This is a binding ritual. Okay. To bind the items together and to the individual, your target, your victim, your intended, okay, depending on what type of ritual you're doing and the purpose behind the griskus bag. This is something that you're going to have to think long and hard on how to do, okay? Because once the items are consecrated, you're going to need to bind them together or fuse them together for the spell. This could be done through an incantation, a chant that you can create on your own, or you can utilize some form of whisper. Okay. Think of it like, say, for example, if you're summoning a spirit. Okay. Let's say, for example, you're going to summon Asmodeus. Asmodeus is known as the demonic king of lust and wrath. Okay. So therefore, you'd want to call him together. Like, say, for example, if you want to speak in Latin and you're going to fuse it and you're going to incorporate him into this intent for, say, for example, a lust ritual or some form of love ritual, then you will need to speak the term or the words within a form of a chant while you're consecrating this with your thoughts, your intention, with your hands wrapped around it. Okay? In nomine spiritus Domini Mundi Est. Or if you want, in nomine Spiritus Domini Mundi Est Asmodai. Okay, Asmodai, Asmodeus, Asmodei. Okay, depending on which era or which definition spelling of his name you intend. Here, you would want to summon him, invoke him for the purpose to bless, to bind, and to consecrate these items for your intent. Okay? As a practitioner, if you are more advanced, like say an intermediate or in a more advanced practitioner, you already know how to do it by infusing your energy, your will into that griscos bag. Some of the more older techniques, however, and deal and do the specialization of coins, ancient coins, things with, say, for an example, an altar coin, something with a symbol like an inverted pentagram or a pentagram on it. It doesn't have to be luxurious. It doesn't have to be, pure silver. It doesn't have to be much of anything. Nowadays, if you're around Halloween or you're around, say, just after Halloween, you could probably go to any number of stores and pick up these coins from the toy department or from their seasonal department of Halloween. Things like, say, for an example, bones. Well, bones, you'd actually want to have real ones. Chicken bones, very, very good. Cat bones if it's already dead. Black cat bones. Things like, say, for an example, a joint, hip joint or whatever. Or if you're in there, you can get, if you go to the dollar store, you could probably get some form of coins. They always have those little bags full of toy coins. Something like that with skulls or a pentagram, some form of symbolism from a occultist perspective, a witchcraft perspective, will work wonders. It does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be splendorous. It doesn't even have to be cheap. Just something that represents your intent. Okay? Hey, Echelon, welcome. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And like I said, you want to cleanse these items as independents before you bind them together. And once you bound them together for that single powerful intent, you can put them in the griscos bag, this black bag, the cursing bag. And the thing is that you want to bury it close to your intended. Okay? This could be done on their property. This could be planted in their home, their vehicle, depending on if you know them or not, and how bold or brazen you are. In the old days, this would have simply been placed upon the individual. Some practitioners have been known to make this stuff into a powder. In the old days, they would have used alchemy and ground all this stuff up into a single powder, something that they could blow in your face. Perhaps even, you can touch it with your hand, like, say, the shake of a hand. And depending on the powder's purpose, it could heal, it could make you sick, it could even kill you. But some powders are utilized to get your attention. It's a chemical compound that incites you and enslaves you at the same time for that particular purpose. I mean, look at voodoo, look at hoodooism. These two arts alone, these two practices alone, have so many different powders that can be employed. It's spectacular, really. And I'm not joking when I say that either. I You get into these powders of voodoo, specifically one of the sources that I would recommend is the Complete Book of Voodoo. That book has so many powders. I've never even heard of some of these powders that were mixed up in voodoo practices, not just Haitian voodoo or that of, say, for an example, the Book of Palo, Palo Mayumbi. But a lot of these things have a list of herbs and stuff that you can utilize. You go back into all these old grimoires and you have a list of powders, but things that you can employ to consecrate things. For an example, in the Red Book of Appin, you utilize bat's blood, human blood, bones of animals, okay? And you ground these to create a sacred space. Now, what if I told you that the same can be done with these items that I just named off, okay? Just for the creation of a gristgrist bag. I would also recommend that you charge this bag beforehand. That way, when you are ready to deploy this bag, you can bury it next to the person's house, someplace where they're going to walk by it daily. You can put it on the trail if you know where they walk. Now, if you're really brazen, if you're really, really brazen, you can place it in their hand and do an incantation, activating it, and watch as it takes over them. These are black magic items, yes, but they have also been used for other purposes. And like I said, healing, protection, empowerment, and yes, even cursing. You can use these things for lust rituals, destruction rituals, or even compassion rituals. But it all comes down to your intent. And you want to look at the items that you're gathering for this. Because if you get the wrong items, let's say for an example, you borrow items from somebody else and you don't consecrate them, you don't sanctify them, and you don't bless them, okay? And you just throw them into the gristgrist bag. It defeats the purpose because it will just cancel it out. It's nothing personal. It's just a matter you got somebody else's essence on that. Their will is on it, not your own. Okay? That is why it's always important to bless and consecrate the items. No matter what you're utilizing. No matter what you're utilizing them for. You want to consecrate them as individuals long before you bind them together with the other items. Okay? That's just something that you can look into on your own. But remember this, there's a lot of false connotions out there. A lot of people have these weird expectations when it comes to gristgrist bags. Because a lot of them follow things like Harry Potter or Supernatural or even Charmed, Bewitched even, Witches of East End. I mean, don't get me wrong, these were all great movies and TV shows. But when you get into real magic, when you get into real sorcery, you're going to want to pay attention. You're going to want to get serious about this and do your homework. Look at the various different types of rituals that you're doing. What is your intention? Let's say, for an example, your intent is to make somebody fall in love with you. You'd want to gather up all the ingredients from, say, fruits, vegetables, herbalism, even things that will deal with the reproductive system, like, say, celery or basil, maybe even thyme or amber. Okay, something that will deal with like dill seed or oh, I don't know. Let's go with sea salt purification. Okay, your intent should be pure because your intent is to bring this person to you either through attraction or against their will for a one night stand. It's up to you on how you want to do it. I'm just throwing out a few things that you could actually use. Now, in fruits and vegetables, celery and certain things like strawberries have been known to increase that reproductive system, that closeness with your partner or the would-be partner. Look into Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Herbs and Herbalism, or even Herbalism and Magic by him. Wicca in the Kitchen is another one. Three great books by this one former practitioner of herbalism. Incredible knowledge right there. He not only brings it into what they're capable of doing, but he brings them into the magical applications as well and what they're used for, either for protection, for protection, for increasing your sex drive, or even for better health. Okay, there's a few authors out there. I mean, even Peter Haining, Paul Huzon rather, has some great stuff there. Peter Haining, the Warlock's book, same thing. It's got a lot of different spells in there that are made for this stuff, especially destruction rituals, lust rituals, even. He's got one that was so weird, a couple of them that were actually kind of weird. But do they work? I don't know. I've never felt the need to kiss a toad. I'm just saying. Some of them sound a little funky, but apparently it was associated with Gaelic traditions, Scottish traditions of witchcraft. And a lot of times when we look at the different regions, we see different spells, different concoctions, from brews to oleums to herbs that can be employed within your sorcery. This is why it's important to do your research and get acquainted with all applications of it. Utilizing grist bags or sweetener jars, as they're now called through Wicca and Wiccan practices, getting into um, hexing jars and cursing jars and all this other stuff. They all have the same means. Utilizing bones, utilizing some form of item or linking agent, to literally putting in things like graveyard dirt or gopher dust, you know, if it's destruction rituals, usually, sealing it with candle wax, be it your desire or your intent, your passion, your rage through a red candle, or the intent of damnation with a black candle. Think about that for just a minute. All the different usage going across the board can be fit within a grist bag, a cursing bag, a hex bag, or even a jar. But it comes down to your intent and what you're looking to do. So my advice for this one is do your research. Delve into the different formulae from various different traditions and practices. I can tell you that through the grimoire of Santa Morte, Volume 1, there's a lot of herbs in that one. They can be employed for cleansing baths to utilizing in spells. Get into satanic magic, demonic sorcery, even. Get into S. Conley's book. What was it called? Bringing Down Belial. Get into Scott Cunningham, Paul Huzon's books. Mastering Witchcraft. He's even got a book called Herbs and Herbalism. Get into like I said, there's a lot of them that you can for starting places. I mean, there's even books on hoodooism and how to curse somebody. Do your research on Google. Get into a number of different practices and learn. Not because I'm guiding you to that material, not because I said so, but because you want to. The choice is yours to either become more enlightened or stay in stagnation. You want to believe what's handed to you at face value, or do you want to go out and better yourself and evolve through your own research, your own dedicated practice? The applications of research can be added and employed in your sorcery by experimentation, by doing the homework, by figuring out what works and what doesn't. What is the math behind it? What is the fractions behind it? A portion of this meets a portion of that. Wow, that's very meticulous, right? That's why you need to experiment. That's why you need to figure it out for yourself. A lot of the concoctions nowadays, or even in the past, you'll either need one third of something or you'll need a teaspoon of something else. But if you're getting into baneful sorcery and you're utilizing things like poisons like hemlock or henbane, wolfsbane, or even, say, for example, Oriolander, you're going to really want to be very precise with the portioning of these plants, these herbs. Same thing with hellebore. Okay, same exact thing. You want to be precise because you don't want to end up killing somebody, and you definitely don't want to kill yourself. So therefore, no matter what you're doing with herbs and herbalism, be it within hex bags or whatever, be precise and do your homework. Okay. Another great thing is coins, sigils, steves. These images, like I said, have been employed on coins in the past. You can gather coins, metals, melt them down, and inscribe your own seals into them. Place runes on them if you wish. A lot of steves or seals or even sigils can be placed on them, but you want to have your intent on it. Like, say, for example, if you're doing destruction rituals and you get the coin, you're making the coin, the cursing coin or the charm. You really want to have things like skull and crossbones, maybe an inverted pentagram, maybe something with the quarter moon or the waning moon mixed in with, say, no, I don't know. Let's go with some kind of Steve that resembles death. Put them together, cleanse them as independents, and bind them together to make one powerful spell. Put them in the grisgris bag and take it to where it's intended. Choice is yours. Have a good one.